Like making my stinky body something romantic. Hey, you smell those pheromones? It means you're digging on me. You like that stinky smell?
I don't know what Robyn and Kody think they're doing this season with how they're portraying their relationship, but it's not giving soulmate or happy, healthy marriage vibes. Quite the opposite, in fact. From what I'm watching, these are
Kody Brown recently executed relationship termination on national broadcasting, and the complete world observed it transpire in actual time. We're discussing a moment so uncomfortable, so absolutely cringe-inducing that you can't examine away, even though every component of your existence desires to. Kody is standing there saturated in his individual perspiration, and instead of being mortified like any rational individual would be, he's attempting to weaponize his body scent as romantic initiation. He's literally inquiring Robyn if she can perceive his pheromones, if she's appreciating his odor, if that perspiring musk is activating her attraction. And Robyn's expression, she appears like somebody recently requested her to consume refuse from the pavement. This isn't merely inadequate broadcasting. This is a complete-scale revelation of a marriage that's deteriorating from the interior outward. And somehow neither Kody nor Robyn can perceive that millions of viewers are observing their connection disintegrate in elevated definition. Kody is struggling to convince everyone that he and Robyn are more passionate than ever currently, that Christine, Janelle, and Mary have escaped his performance. However, the reality performing on screen communicates a severely different narrative. Robyn has obtained the revulsion. And it's not merely about Kody's questionable personal hygiene. It's about everything he is, everything he executes, his complete existence. The uncomfortable factor escalates from there. Kody maintains pushing more intensely, inquiring if his scent is rendering her contemplate he's attractive, if she's attracted to his perspiring masculine odor. He's displaying like his existence depends on it, flailing surrounding attempting to extract even the smallest fragment of validation from his exclusive remaining spouse, and Robyn is terminating him intensely. She's uncomfortable. She's distant. And she's broadcasting to the complete world that whatever fantasy Kody has constructed in his consciousness about their connection is absolutely not the reality. Sources proximate to the circumstance reveal this has become their new typical. Every singular instance Kody attempts to be affectionate on camera or in public, Robyn withdraws. She declines to engage romantically with him when he's demanding it. She exclusively demonstrates interest when he retreats and discontinues acting frantic. Here's where the fantasy achieves maximum levels. Kody is blaming this catastrophe on the previous Brown household regulation about not demonstrating affection before the other spouses. He claims Robyn merely requires duration to adjust to monogamy, that ultimately she be contacting his posterior area in commercial centers to demonstrate her dedication. That's literally his ultimate fantasy. Meanwhile, Robyn is executing weak excuses about obtaining comfortable, however her body language screams the reality. She's repulsed. The individual who used to be her exciting escape has become her suffocating everyday reality. And she's comprehending that complete duration. Kody is absolutely unbearable. The fairy tale has destroyed, and what remains is a marriage submerging in its individual dysfunction. Robyn Brown devoted years being Kody's ultimate escape, his sanctuary, his forbidden paradise where he could flee away from all his difficulties with the other spouses. She was the companion who never had to become the spouse in the traditional perception because there were continuously 3 other individuals managing with Kody's everyday disorder. Robyn received the fantasy version of Kody, the romantic meals, the special attention, the advertisements. She possessed him on rotation, which signified when he appeared at her entrance, he was motivated to impress her. He possessed competition. He possessed something to demonstrate, and Robyn absolutely flourished in that dynamic, because that's the exclusive connection model she ever recognized developing. Her individual parent was the companion to a partial duration father. Therefore, Robyn acquired early that being the preferred component on the side was genuinely the succeeding position. She was never intended to be the exclusive spouse. That was never component of the strategy. When Kody was managing 4 residences, Robyn's residence was his vacation location, his mature playground where he didn't even have to parent because she employed outside child supervision to manage those troublesome responsibilities. He could appear, receive his ego caressed, experience desired and wanted, subsequently depart before circumstances obtained excessively genuine or excessively boring. It was the perfect establishment for an individual who desires persistent validation. However, possesses the attention duration of an aquatic creature. However, subsequently Christine departed. Subsequently, Janelle departed. Subsequently, even Mary, who had been emotionally verified out for years, officially departed. And suddenly, Robyn's deliberately curated function as the exciting preferred entirely evaporated. There's no excitement in being the preferred when you're the exclusive alternative remaining. There's no competition to maintain Kody on his awareness. There's no other residence for him to proceed to when circumstances obtain tense. Robyn proceeded from being the destination to being the complete map. And that shift has absolutely destroyed whatever enchantment existed between them. Currently, Kody is there all the duration, every singular day. Every irritating habit, every bizarre personality peculiarity, every frantic requirement for attention is directly in her expression. 24/7. The individual who used to be her escape has become her confinement supervisor, and she's confined in a $2 million substantial residence with somebody. She's comprehending she doesn't genuinely desire to be surrounding complete duration. Industry insiders suggest Robyn is experiencing purchaser's regret on a catastrophic level. She confronted intensely to be the #1 spouse. She orchestrated relocations and manipulated circumstances to maintain Kody's focus on her. And currently that she's succeeded. She's discovering the prize is genuinely a catastrophe. The contradiction is almost poetic. Robyn devoted years being envied by Christine, Janelle, and Mary for receiving all of Kody's duration and attention. Currently, those three individuals are liberated, experiencing their optimal existences while Robyn is confined with precisely what she desired. And it transforms that possessing Kody all to yourself isn't the aspiration she believed it would be. It's genuinely her deteriorated catastrophe performing in gradual motion. And there's no escape route in visibility. Kody Brown is out here acting like he's divine power's gift to individuals. And Robyn is treating him like he's a stranger at the transportation discontinuation who won't discontinue discussing to her. The displaying circumstance has obtained so out of regulation that it's genuinely painful to observe. Kody acknowledges on camera that he's persistently demonstrating for Robyn. Engaging romantically with her in manners he claims he would never execute with another individual. He's attempting to render his perspiring, odorous body into something romantic, something seductive, something that's intended to activate her mechanism. However, the exclusive element activating is Robyn's desire to be literally anywhere else on the planet. This is not typical couple communication. This is not playful teasing between two individuals who are attracted to each other. This is an individual frantically requesting for fragments of attention from a spouse who has entirely verified out emotionally. Kody is standing there requesting Robyn to arrive, perceive his underarm areas, attempting to convince her that his body scent is some type of aphrodisiac that should possess her weak in the limbs. And Robyn's response: she's visibly repulsed. She's inquiring if that odor is genuinely him. And when he verifies it is, she's not expressing affection. She's withdrawing like somebody recently opened a refuse container before her expression on an elevated temperature summer day. Information circulating suggests this dynamic is consuming Kody alive. He's an individual who has continuously required persistent validation, persistent praise, persistent reassurance that he's attractive and desirable. For years he could transfer between 4 different individuals and continuously locate somebody willing to supply his ego. If Christine wasn't in the disposition, he'd proceed to Janelle. If Janelle wasn't granting him sufficient attention, he'd proceed to Robyn. He continuously possessed alternatives, continuously possessed support sources of validation. However, currently he's obtained one spouse, and that one spouse is rendering it abundantly evident that his displaying routine is not functioning. In reality, it's possessing the contrary effect. Robyn directly communicates him on camera that when he's actively attempting to receive her attention by demonstrating, she terminates. She declined to grant him what he desires when he's demanding it like some entitled child throwing a disturbance. She exclusively demonstrates him affection when he's not acting frantic. When he's not flailing, surrounding, attempting to demonstrate how masculine and attractive he is. However, here's the difficulty with that establishment. Kody doesn't recognize how to not be frantic anymore. He doesn't recognize how to merely exist without persistently pursuing validation because his complete identity has been constructed surrounding being the superior patriarch that numerous individuals confront over. The humiliation is documented all over his expression every instance Robyn rejects his advances. He's attempting to express amusement in a way, attempting to execute jokes about how she merely requires duration to adjust to monogamy. However, underneath that forced amusement is an individual who's comprehending his exclusive spouse doesn't genuinely desire him. She's tolerating him. She's confined with him, however she's not selecting him. And that distinction is gradually destroying whatever ego Kody possesses remaining. The displaying creature has forfeited all his decorative elements. And what's remaining is merely a sorrowful, perspiring individual requesting for affection. That will never arrive. Kody Brown has positioned himself into a location so restricted that there's absolutely no manner out. And the casualties of his ego are astonishing. 13 of his children are essentially terminated to him currently. 13 children that he assisted bring into this existence have been disowned, discarded, dismissed because they committed the ultimate transgression in Kody's distorted worldview. They didn't worship him. They didn't submit to his authority. They didn't remain proximate sufficiently for him to regulate. They relocated out of state. They constructed their individual existences. They declined to perform along with his patriarch. Fantasy. And for that, Kody has terminated them without a second contemplation. However, here's where it becomes even darker. Kody has devoted the final several years praising Robyn for her exceptional parenting abilities, specifically her capability to receive her children into what he identifies complete compliance. He maintains Robyn's children as the superior standard. The brilliant examples of what children should be when they properly respect their father.
He's employing them as weapons against his other children.
Essentially communicating that if Christine's children or Janelle's children or Mary's child had merely been more like Robyn's children, potentially he wouldn't have abandoned them. The manipulation is absolutely chilling. Robyn's 3 eldest children have become what can exclusively be described as mature hostages in their individual residence. They're not flourishing. They're not prospering. They're confined in a toxic environment where their complete existence revolves, surrounding maintaining Kody's fragile ego intact. Dayton, Aurora, and Brina developed observing their parent cater to Kody's every desire. Observing her manipulate circumstances to maintain his attention. Observing her throw the other spouses and their children under the transportation to preserve her position as preferred, and currently they're experiencing in the aftermath of that strategy. Confined in a substantial residence with an individual who demands persistent praise and a parent who has constructed her complete identity surrounding being his selected one. Reports are surfacing that the circumstance inside that residence is far more severe than what we're perceiving on camera. These children have never recognized stability. Their complete childhood has been one relocation after another, one household crisis after another, one dramatic shift after another, and currently they're mature individuals who are intended to merely determine how to function in the genuine existence when they've been raised in absolute disorder. Brina, in particular, appears entirely shell-surprised in recent episodes, like somebody who's recently comprehended the existence she believed she possessed was genuinely a deliberately constructed illusion. The most disturbing component of all this is how Kody authentically believes he's the victim in this situation. He contemplates 13 of his children betrayed him. He contemplates they're the disloyal ones, the ungrateful ones, the ones who transform their backs on household values. He cannot comprehend that potentially, merely potentially, he's the difficulty. He's the one who selected preferences. He's the one who abandoned his responsibilities. He's the one who allowed his ego destroy everything he claimed to maintain sacred. And while he's occupied expressing approval on the back for possessing 3 compliant, mature children still under his shelter, He's entirely blind to the reality that compliance born from fear and manipulation is not the identical element as affection and respect. There's a moment in the recent Sister Wives episodes that should haunt every singular individual who observes this program. The household is preparing the substantial residence obtaining prepared for yet another relocation that Kody has orchestrated, and somebody inquires Brina how she's experiencing about departing. This should be a simple inquiry. Most individuals would possess some type of response prepared, even if it's merely a polite deflection. However, Brina, she appears absolutely devastated. Her expression proceeds blank. Her vision forfeit focus, and she stammers that she doesn't recognize how she experiences. She authentically possesses no concept how to process what's transpiring to her existence, and that should be establishing alarm signals for everyone observing. This is not a child who's merely sorrowful about relocating residences. This is a young, mature individual who has possessed her complete existence transformed upside numerous instances that she can't even identify her individual emotions anymore. Brina is the youngest of Robyn's 3 eldest children, and she's been forced to observe her household implode while being communicated that everything is acceptable, that this is all component of divine power's strategy, that devotion to Kody is the most significant element in the universe. However, her expression communicates the genuine narrative. She's not acceptable. She hasn't been acceptable for an extended duration, and currently she's confined in a circumstance where her future appears absolutely severe. Contemplate the position Brina is in currently. She's a mature individual residing at residence during this substantial relocation to an even larger, more costly residence. Sources proximate to the circumstance reveal it's been intensely implied to her that this is not an extended-term residing arrangement for her. She's being communicated without genuinely being communicated that she requires to determine her individual path, locate her individual location, depart from under her parents' shelter. However, how is she intended to execute that when she's been raised in an environment that demands complete obedience and provides zero instruments for independence? She's been maintained dependent, maintained compliant, maintained small. And currently, suddenly, she's anticipated to merely proceed out into the existence and function like a typical mature individual. Meanwhile, her siblings are locating their escape routes. Dayton has evidently relocated and discontinued recording for the program entirely, though nobody is discussing why or where he proceeded. Aurora possesses a boyfriend currently, and insiders claim an engagement could be on the horizon. If Aurora obtains married and departs, that's going to render Brina the final child standing in substantial residence 2.0. She become the designated caretaker, the one remaining behind to manage Kody's dispositions and Robyn's anxieties, while her siblings obtain to construct their individual existences. No surprise she appears like she recently positioned on a deteriorated metal object when inquired about her experiences. The most sorrowful component is that Robyn's children are victims too. Even though substantial individuals don't perceive them that manner, they didn't request for any of this. They didn't request to be employed as instruments in Robyn's competition to become Kody's preferred spouse. They didn't request to be maintained as the superior standard that Kody's other children could never achieve. They've been infantilized, manipulated, and confined in a dysfunctional household system that's collapsing surrounding them. And Brianna's devastated expression is evidence that the damage executes profoundly. We should discuss the obvious issue in the space that nobody on Sister Wives desires to address. Dayton Brown, Robyn's eldest offspring, has entirely vanished from the program. One season he's there, the subsequent season he's absent, and the official explanation is vague at optimal. The official statement is that Dayton simply didn't desire to record anymore, that he selected privacy over being on camera. And everyone merely accepted that explanation and progressed. However, here's the element. When you genuinely contemplate the timeline and the circumstances surrounding his disappearance, that explanation initiates to disintegrate genuinely rapidly. Dayton was continuously maintained as one of Kody's success narratives. He was one of the compliant children, one of the respectful ones who recognized how to demonstrate proper deference to the patriarch. Kody admired expressing about how positively Robyn's children transformed compared to the children from his other marriages. Therefore, why would Dayton, who allegedly possessed such an exceptional connection with Kody, suddenly determine he desired nothing to execute with the program that compensates for his household's luxurious lifestyle? Why would he disappear directly surrounding the duration when Kody required him most to demonstrate that at minimum some of his children still respected him? The timing is incredibly suspicious. Dayton's departure from the program coincides almost perfectly with the duration when Christine, Janelle, and Mary initiated extracting away from Kody. It's directly surrounding the duration when the fractures in the household initiated becoming impossible to conceal. And suddenly the eldest offspring, who was intended to be this brilliant example of what proper obedience resembles, merely vanishes without a genuine explanation. Sources proximate to the household whisper that there's substantially more to this narrative than what's being demonstrated on camera. However, obtaining anyone to discuss on the documentation is nearly impossible, because the Browns have secured tighter than military fortification. Here's what renders this even more problematic for Kody's narrative. He devoted years excusing his abandonment of 13 of his biological children by indicating to Robyn's children as evidence that the difficulty is in him. He claims that if children are raised correctly, if they're instructed proper respect and devotion, they'll remain proximate and preserve the connection. However, if that's genuine, subsequently, why isn't Dayton front and center on the program, demonstrating Kody's position? Why isn't he there at household assemblies demonstrating everyone how exceptional circumstances are when you pursue Kody's regulations? His absence genuinely undermines everything Kody has been attempting to present. The reality is that Dayton's disappearance is an inadequate appearance no matter how you rotate it. Either he departed because he didn't desire to be component of the performance anymore, which signifies even the so-identified compliant children are rejecting Kody's vision, or something transpired that forced him from the attention, which raises even more disturbing inquiries. Objectively, it's peculiar to express about how your spouse's children are so devoted and dedicated, when one of them has literally removed himself from the complete circumstance. It's even more peculiar that nobody is permitted to inquire inquiries about it. The silence surrounding Dayton's absence is deafening, and it suggests that whatever the genuine reason is, it's something the Browns frantically don't desire the public to recognize. Aurora Brown recently might be the most intelligent individual in the complete substantial residence, and here's why. She's obtained a boyfriend currently, and if the social media fragments are communicating us anything, an engagement could be arriving more rapidly than anyone anticipated. Back in September, Aurora's boyfriend posted a content anniversary communication to her on social media, which signifies they've been collectively for at minimum a year, feasibly extended. And in the existence of fundamentalist adjacent households where courtship frequently progresses at lightning velocity, a year extended connection is essentially an eternity. Insiders are whispering that a jewelry could be arriving soon. And if that's genuine, Aurora is about to execute the perfect escape from the catastrophe zone that is her parents' marriage. However, here's the inquiry that nobody desires to inquire out loud. Is this individual genuinely an adequate correspondence for Aura, or is he merely her passage out of catastrophe? When you develop in the environment that Aurora has been confined in, where your complete existence revolves surrounding maintaining your stepfather's ego inflated and observing your parent manipulate everyone surrounding her, the concept of any connection that obtains you from that residence presumably appears like a fairy tale. The concern is whether Aurora is selecting this connection because she authentically admires this individual and perceives a future with him, or because she's so frantic to escape that any halfway adequate individual appears like royal hero. The upcoming Sister Wives episodes are supposedly going to introduce viewers to this mysterious boyfriend, and you can guarantee the complete viewer foundation is going to be observing with intense vision to perceive what type of individual Aurora has attached herself to. Is he controlling like Kody? Does he possess that identical frantic requirement for validation? Or is he genuinely a stable, healthy individual who can assist Aurora recover from the damage of developing in such a dysfunctional environment? The circumstances couldn't be elevated because if Aurora executes an inadequate selection here, she could conclude proceeding from one toxic circumstance directly into another one. What renders this even more significant is the sequence effect. It's going to possess on the household dynamic. Currently, Dayton has already disappeared from the main residence and discontinued recording. If Aurora obtains married and relocates, that departs Brina as the final one standing. She become the default caretaker, the one confined managing Kody's disturbances and Robyn's anxieties, while her siblings obtain to experience their individual existences. That's an enormous quantity of pressure to position on the youngest of Robyn's older 3 children, and it's not equitable in the slightest. There's also the uncomfortable reality that if Aurora departs, it entirely destroys Kody's narrative about possessing these perfectly obedient children who desire to remain proximate to him. 2 out of 3 of Robyn's eldest children will have located manners to depart, which raises serious inquiries about what's genuinely transpiring inside that residence. The information in reality broadcasting circles is that Aurora's potential marriage could be the initiation of the conclusion for whatever illusion Kody and Robyn have been attempting to preserve. Once the children initiate dispersing, there's no more concealing behind the exterior of the perfect plural household. It'll merely be Kody and Robyn confined collectively in their substantial residence, forced to ultimately confront the reality that their connection is constructed on absolutely nothing substantial. Here's something that Kody and Robyn maintain, acknowledging on camera without comprehending how condemning it genuinely is. They are fundamentally incompatible as individuals. Not in the attractive contrary attractions manner where an introvert and an extrovert balance each other. We're discussing a profound personality confrontation that renders an extended term monogamous connection basically impossible. Kody is a displaying creature who requires persistent attention, persistent validation, persistent public displays of affection to experience secure. And Robyn, she's positioning herself as this reserved, private individual who locates all of that demonstration absolutely mortifying. Kody literally communicates on camera that he's continuously displaying surrounding Robyn executing elements he would never execute with another individual. He desires his posterior area contacted in public. He desires Robyn to openly acknowledge how attractive and masculine he is. He desires her to compete for him to demonstrate the existence that she's selected him and she's content of that selection. That's his complete affection language. He requires external validation to experience desired, and he's not subtle about demanding it. However, every singular instance he attempts to receive that validation from Robyn, she terminates him intensely. She communicates him directly that when he's displaying and demanding attention, she declines to grant it to him. She exclusively demonstrates affection when he's not actively requesting for it. Contemplate how unsustainable that dynamic is. Kody requires public affection to experience secure. Robyn declines to grant public affection when it's demanded. Therefore, Kody escalates his displaying to attempt to force a reaction. Robyn withdraws even further because the displaying humiliates her. Kody interprets her withdrawal as rejection and obtains even more frantic. Robyn obtains even more repulsed by his desperation. It's a termination spiral that possesses no departure strategy, and they're both excessively stubborn or excessively delusional to perceive it transpiring. Robyn attempts to explain this away by blaming the previous Brown household culture. She claims that because there was this unspoken regulation about not demonstrating affection with Kody before the other spouses, she merely received condition to withdraw from any public displays. She's framing this as something she requires to discontinue acquiring currently that she's in a monogamous circumstance. However, that explanation doesn't maintain validity when you examine at her genuine body language. This isn't an individual who's uncomfortable because of past conditioning. This is an individual who is authentically repulsed by her spouse and attempting to locate polite manners to avoid his contact. Kody maintains communicating it's merely going to execute duration for Robyn to adjust that ultimately she be comfortable sufficiently to contact his posterior in a commercial center. And that's when he'll recognize they've succeeded it. That's literally his measurement for a successful marriage. Public posterior contacting. However, the reality is that no quantity of duration is going to render. Robyn suddenly desires an individual she locates fundamentally unappealing. You can't negotiate attraction. You can't logic your manner into chemistry. And you absolutely can't display your manner into rendering somebody desire you when they've already determined they don't. The foundation of their marriage is fractured beyond restoration. And these personality differences are merely the visible symptoms of a substantially deeper difficulty. They don't genuinely admire each other as individuals. And currently that they're confined collectively complete duration with no escape, that reality is becoming impossible to ignore. Kody Brown recently acknowledged something on camera that should transmit surprise movements through the complete sister wives community. However, somehow it's obtaining buried under all the other complications. He basically confessed that the intimacy between him and Robyn has entirely evaporated. He's not receiving his requirements encountered. The sleeping chamber is terminated, and this is absolutely astonishing because for years, the operating assumption was that Kody was continuously at Robyn's residence because the physical side of their connection was exceptional.